To have you guys here. It's really a topic that's really important to me, which is managing your feelings and your emotions. And the reason that it's important to me, and the reason why I wanted to take the time to teach this and do this training is because what I've discovered is in my own life, like I found that something would happen in my own life and I would get really derailed, and then it would take me a long time to muster up the energy to get back on track, whether it was, when I was dating and finding love, whether it was with my business. And what I found also was that with my clients, in order for my clients to find love, in order for my clients to be successful, they had to learn how to manage their feelings and their emotions as well. So I just put together this really quick training because I know the holidays can be can be kind of sometimes an extra added stress, and then with everything else that's going on, I just wanted to teach you guys these quick tips. And how I work is when I do trainings like this, I record the content, right? So we'll go through the content and I record it, and then I, make it available to people to listen to later. But then at the end, I'll turn the recording off. And if you wanted to do any, ask me anything or have any more of a private, intimate, no recording setting. Does that sound good to you guys? And we'll can go through and do a round table and stuff like that. Okay. So I am going to get started. Okay, so it's feel good, feel better now, right? And it's just 3 tips to feeling good for the holidays. And also, like I said, these can be used to bring up your mood and to elevate your mood whenever you need it. And I have found these to be very quick, easy things that work for my life and also have worked really well for my clients. But I want to start with talking about feelings versus what I call suffering. And the thing about feelings is that they're mandatory, right? Like they're what makes you a human being. So there's no opting out of feelings. And when I started my spiritual growth journey, I literally thought I was going to be like, have this inner peace to where just nothing would affect me. And I would just be like, all the time. But the fact is that if you're alive and engaged in your life, you're going to have feelings. And you can't control your feelings. You can't, like, if something happens that's upsetting, you're going to feel something. Okay, so there's no stopping that. And I know with this whole create your reality and all these things that we're taught, it's like feel good, feel good, feel good. But you are going to feel ways other than good. And so what I want to share is like pure feelings, okay? Feelings that you're going to experience, joy. We've all experienced joy, like, something really great happens, you fall in love, you meet somebody amazing, you have an awesome conversation, you do something fun, you're going to feel joy. Peace, we've all had those moments of peace where we feel calm, relaxed, all's well in the world, right? Sadness, you are going to feel sad in your life. If you lose somebody you love, you're going to feel sad. And anger, it is totally normal to feel anger. Some of the things that maybe we've seen happening in the world right now could really piss us off, and that is normal. And it's normal to feel anger. So feeling's mandatory, but suffering is not mandatory. And suffering is usually what you do with your feelings. So I'll give you an example of suffering, of how suffering would occur. Would be a really great example is with relationships and dating, right? So if somebody breaks up with somebody and a relationship ends and there was closure there, it was the person's choice. Like, one of my clients chose to break up with somebody. It wasn't working. He didn't have her requirements. She chose to break up with him. She might have been sad because she had a lot of hope for the relationship. She thought he was going to be the one. She didn't want to have to date again, and she felt sad about it, but then quickly moved on because she had closure. But what if she turned that into, a story about, how there's no good men out there, or how she wasn't picking the right guy, or, it's her fault that she keeps meeting men who aren't the right one, right? So then that's when sadness turns into suffering, and you don't have to suffer. And you can take action to end your suffering. And so suffering is like depression, overwhelm, anxiety. And I just want to talk about the feeling of loneliness, because I believe that loneliness is a feeling. And sometimes during the holidays, you can feel lonely. And loneliness is a pure feeling, and it's okay to feel that, because the feeling of loneliness is what gives you the desire to have a relationship or to have more connection in your life, right? If you didn't have that feeling of loneliness, then you wouldn't know something was missing, or that there was something that you desired, right? But loneliness can turn to suffering if you tell yourself a story that, it's because you're not good enough, or it's because you made bad choices in the past, or because whatever you might be telling yourself. So if you feel lonely, that's totally fine. It's totally normal. And it's also good because it's giving you feedback, right, about something you want to experience. The thing is that you just don't want to stay stagnant, because feelings are fluid, right? So if you feel joy, right, you're having an amazing time, you're feeling total joy, that feeling is going to end. It's not going to continue. It's not going to be a never-ending state of joy as much as we would want it to. But suffering, people can stay stuck in a depression for years, right? And now I do know that in some cases depression can be a chemical imbalance, and I'm not talking about that kind of depression. I'm just talking about more of a mood related depression. Anxiety, overwhelm is a really good example of suffering, where you don't know what to do next and your life feels very out of control, right? So there you can get out of that. And with any feeling, with any negative feeling, if you are going through a time of feeling lonely, you can tell yourself, hey, you know what? This isn't going to be this way always. I will not feel this way always. In fact, tomorrow's a new day and I could wake up and feel totally different. So this is Power versus Force this guy wrote this book called Power versus Force, and this is his scale of emotions. And so the emotions up here in blue are what he views as like higher vibration emotions, and the emotions in yellow are like lower vibration emotions. So and again, like anger, you're going to feel that way. Grief, you're going to feel that way in your life. But it's how much time you spend, right, into withdrawal, despondency. That's when you would get stuck there, right? And if it's your life view of hopeless, for example, with apathy. And that's how over here to the right is sort of how these feelings can turn into suffering, and how to be able to get yourself back up above here is where things start to be able to happen in your life that you want. So here's the 3 tips to feeling better now. So one of the things that I have found so many women, especially with the dating, but in general, is anxiety is a big emotion, or a big feeling, or a big suffering that a lot of women I know struggle with. I myself have dealt with anxiety as well. And so one of the best ways to shift, because when you're in anxiety, some people will tell you like journal or find the underlying belief. But if you're feeling that way, if you're in that feeling, it's very hard to do anything, right? It's very hard to journal. So music is a really great tool, and I'm going to share some resources of the type of music that can really help shift your mood. And in fact, I know with we'll do a little challenge at the end, but people who've done listen to this type of music every single day will have a noticeable increase in their mood and in their feelings. And the second tip is tapping. I don't know if you've heard of tapping, but it's a technique that a lot of people are using, EFT, that really, really helps. And I'm going to share some tapping resources and also a tapping technique with you guys at the end. But EFT is really great because a lot of times when you're in the suffering, you're also in your head, right? Because the feeling has turned into a suffering or mental thoughts. And so it actually means you're in your head. So when you do tapping, it helps you move back into your body, and it frees up the energy so you can move forward. And then the third tip is taking action, because if you're stuck in something, the best way out is through, right? And a lot of things that keep people from taking action is they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. But the thing is that you just have to take one step. It's just, what's the next step? What's the next thing that comes into your mind to do? And a lot of times people get in overwhelm and anxiety because they are overthinking the action to take. They want to know how it's going to work out, or they're afraid of making a mistake, or they have a need to be perfect. And I wrote Be Sexy because one of my business mentors, he is always talking about, like, don't afraid to be sexy. That's what he calls it. Like if he's on stage and he does something, he'll be like, hey, I'm being sexy. If he makes a mistake, and it makes us all laugh and it makes us all love them, right? So if you have this need to be perfect, then it really makes it hard to take any action. But if you give yourself permission to be sexy, then it can free you up to take whatever the next step is, and then trust the process, right? So you have your next step to get you out of overwhelm, and you don't know really how it's going to turn out, and you don't know what's next, and you don't know where it's leading, but that's where you have to just relax and trust the process. And then after you take the next indicated step, you take the next indicated step, right? So it's just one step after the other. And the thing is that if you are feeling down, or if you are feeling anxious or an overwhelm, then it can be hard to get to what your next indicated step is. And that's why we have the first two tips, especially the music and the tapping, because it can actually kind of free up your energy so that then you can understand what that next indicated step is. You can get that information of, oh, this is the next thing that I need to do. And so here's some resources. So YouTube is like one of my favorite things. They have so many amazing free resources, and Vortex Success with YouTube has all of these different music that I was just sharing you for tip number 1. I'm going to show you what that is. So this is Vortex Success, and it plays all of this different music. So like abundance consciousness, there's never enough, or remove subconscious blocks, live your life to the fullest, law of attraction. There's a whole thing, overcoming the condition that I'm not good enough. Stop worrying and start living peacefully. Calm yourself down with the binaural beats. This music, and then if you want to do like a quadruple whammy, right? I say take a bath and play this music. You can even play this music and just read a novel. You could play this music and do your dishes, but it really isn't. So one of my challenges to you would be to listen to some of this music every day for like 30 minutes and see what happens to your mood, because it's pretty amazing. And I'm kind of a skeptic about certain things, but I personally listen to this music every single day to keep myself in a higher state and in an elevated mood. So that's one of the resources. The other one that we had talked about is tapping, and we'll do some of that later as well. Brad Yates has a lot of really great tapping videos. And so one of the things that I was talking about, the feelings versus the suffering, is that when you go into anxiety, overwhelm, depression, there's like a feeling that hasn't been fully released. Okay, so the feeling kind of went awry, right? And so when you do tapping and you identify what the feeling is, you can get back to the source of whatever's causing the suffering. And here he just has some really great tappings, like releasing emotional pain, fluffing up your energy, happiness, clearing negativity. So you can kind of think, what's going on with me right now? You know, I would do a tapping before speaking, when I would do public speaking, things like that. So it really, really works. So if you do a double challenge of listening to the music and then maybe starting your day, he has like the tap of the morning, and starting your day with tapping, and you try it for a week, you will be really amazed to see the difference in your mood. Because the thing that's interesting is, as I was saying, like, you know, we're humans and we're going to have feelings, right? And that's completely normal, and we can't expect it to be any different. But we are in charge of our emotional state, right? We are in charge of expressing our feelings, understanding our feelings. And I teach a whole, like when I'm working with people, I teach this whole thing about your feelings and how your feelings will literally guide you through your life because they don't lie. And so stuff happens, it's horrible, stuff happens, it's hard, stuff happens, it breaks our heart, but it's what we do with it that is going to make the difference in our life. Okay? And I'm going to show you guys also a quick tapping as well at the end that you can do like on the spot. Like sometimes I'll have people, some of my clients go into the bathroom and do it. So before we go into the challenge, I want to just stop and see, does anybody have any questions for me that you want to ask about what I've just shared? Ken, hi Ken. Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask about what I just shared? Come on, are you guys buying my thing about suffering and feelings? Tell me the truth. All right, Ken, I'm going to call on you because I know you so well. So what do you think? Do you buy that?
I came in late. It's not fair.
Okay. So feelings are, we all have feelings, right? And we can't help it. Right? Stuff happens. It's part of being human. But suffering is optional because it's feelings gone awry. And that we have to be we can do these different things to take responsibility for changing our feelings. Or changing us out of suffering. We can't change our feelings, but we can not be in suffering. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely true. I've done a lot of work like this in my life as well. And, you know, that's why I wanted to come to the webinar, because for me, it's something that I know, despite as much practice and doing techniques and doing rituals and doing tapping, you know, you're exactly right. There are times where I surrender that choice often, you know, and realize that I'm instead choosing, you know, the suffering or choosing the things that make me unhappy. And so, you know, anything that reminds me that it's a choice is really important.
And the thing is that when you're used to it, because for me, like I had a tendency for anxiety, and I still have to work on my anxiety. So I know this, right? I mean, I had people when I was in school, teachers saying like, your daughter has quite a bit of anxiety. And because it showed up as like talking in class and, you know, not being able to concentrate and, you know, fiddling and biting my nails and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So that's like that's a habit. That's a really big habit. You know, I mean, I had that habit to where I didn't even know what the word anxiety meant, and teachers were saying this about me. And that's why having like the music that I was sharing, the Vortex Solution music, has made
Sure.
a really big difference, because this is getting a new habit, starting a new habit that's going to help you get rid of the old habit.
Right. You know, and I think that there's I can't remember, it's like EMR or something like that a lot of those music use, and that this may do the same thing. I can't remember what the technology is called, but it might be that same technology, which, yeah, it definitely does make a difference in terms of calmness. And it's used, is it the same thing that's used in a lot of meditation and stuff like that as well, I imagine?
Yeah, but what I like about the Vortex Solution and why I shared that specifically is because it has the binaural beats,
Gotcha.
which just does
Yeah.
something extra, because I've listened to all of that stuff. But so if me with my tendency for anxiety, right? So if something happens in my life that, goes out of my control, then I'm going to go to anxiety. It's just
Right.
going to happen. And because I never reached that Zen master state that I was really thinking was going to
Right.
happen.
Well, so here's my question. Here's an interesting question I have for you then, because, as someone that has done a lot of this work, and I've worked with therapists over the years and all that stuff. The one thing I've always heard is that anxiety is a second level emotion, that
Right.
generally, if you can look past the anxiety itself and say, all right, there's always, anxiety is a reaction to an emotion, not the emotion itself. So
Right.
what are your
The
thoughts on
suffering.
saying, like, yeah, so that, like you said, with the suffering, it's probably the same in that it's a second level emotion. Do you find that to be true in your experience? Like, if you can find a way to understand the underlying emotion, and that can bring you a lot more clarity than just going, well, I'm in suffering, rather than doing more work on it.
So what I think is that there is the whole underlying belief thing, right? And what I was talking about at the beginning with is the story. So it's like whatever the story is that you're telling about the event is causing the suffering. It's causing the
Right.
anxiety.
Right.
But uncertainty is just really hard. Period. Uncertainty is an emotion that people go to the ends of the earth to avoid. So like people like us, Ken, who are entrepreneurs, right? We live in uncertainty a lot.
Right.
When people are dating and finding love, when you are in that initial stages of a relationship, very calm people will end up finding themselves very anxious.
Right.
And some more than others. So just sometimes uncertainty is just hard, and you can spend time analyzing and finding the underlying beliefs, but sometimes the way out is through, right?
Right.
And that's where I was saying take action. So if you can do, listen to the music, and then if you can do tapping, and I'm going to do a quick tapping thing too, to show you this one technique. Then you can get back into your body, and that's when you can access your intuition, and that's when you can find out what your next step might be.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
and that's the part I missed at the beginning. So.
Oh no, that's fine. Because the thing is that if you're wanting to wait sometimes to figure out what the underlying belief is, then time can go by.
Right.
Too much time can go by. And then, yes, if you have a coach who's really awesome at helping you figure out the underlying belief, that's great and that's helpful. But there's still, most times you see your coach every other week,
Right.
So, and even like with me, and I've kind of uncovered all of my core beliefs and I'm aware of them. One will come up still. One will still come up. And that's where, when I was sharing of that chart of the different feelings above the line, right? Power versus force.
Right.
You're going to go into the below the line. Everybody's going to feel fear. You're going to feel fear, right? You're going to feel grief. It's just your basic beliefs, your core beliefs that you adopted as a kid or whatever are going to come up. It's just being able to get yourself back up here.
Right.
And get out of it. because we are always going to feel things that we don't like to feel. It's how do we get stuck in them? Do you go to the secondary feeling, right?
Right.
Do you go to what I call the suffering?
Sure.
So I want to show you guys a quick tapping that you can do too. Because sometimes, like if you do the Brad Yates tapping and you're in it and you go like look for a video and then you're like, what is this? What, what? And then he does these words and maybe you don't resonate with them, or maybe you're like on a date. I did have people do this when they're on a date. Go to the bathroom. The bathroom is your best friend on a date. but I'll have people like go to the bathroom or whatever, and then let's say you're feeling nervous. Let's just take nervous as an example. Then you can do this really quick tapping to just get grounded, right? So you start with you jump right in. If you don't know tapping, Brad Yates has a really good video explaining it, but I'm just going to jump in with you guys. So you would just say, all these feelings of nervousness, all these feelings of nervousness. And you can do it with me right now, by the way, so you can just follow along, because I want you to see, even if you're not feeling nervous, you have felt nervous at some point in your life, but I want you to feel the effect that this will have on you, okay? So you would start right here between your eyes, and you say, all these feelings of nervousness. All these feelings of nervousness. And keep breathing. Breathing's so important. All these feelings of nervousness. All these feelings of nervousness. I'm going to mute you guys because I want you to say it out loud. Everyone's muted. No one can hear you. We're all doing this. All these feelings of nervousness. 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 And just take a deep breath. All these feelings of nervousness in your armpit. All these feelings of nervousness. All these feelings of nervousness. And then you go through the points again. I'm willing to let these feelings go. 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 And then you go, all these feelings of nervousness. I'm willing to let these feelings go. All these feelings of nervousness. I'm willing to let these feelings go. All these feelings of nervousness. I'm willing to let these feelings go. All these feelings of nervousness. I'm willing to let these feelings go. All these feelings of nervousness. And then the last set, we're going to say something positive, the opposite, right? I'm willing to feel calm and centered. 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 Then a big deep breath. And do you feel how your body just sort of calms down with that? And you can get grounded. And then from that place, you can make a better decision. And so a really great thing with tapping too is to say, where am I on a scale of 1 to 10? So if you're on a date and you're feeling nervous, or you're about to go on a date and you're feeling nervous, you can be like, well, I'm an 8. And then after the tapping, you say, where am I? Oh, I'm a 5, or I'm a 4. Or if you're a 5, you might want to do it one more time. And the thing about this is the 2 keys is just to identify the feeling, like how you're feeling, because so many times we breeze past how we're feeling anyway, and we go into our mind and we start analyzing, and that's when the suffering also starts. So if you can just get to the feeling, that's a big step in itself. And then so then you acknowledge the feeling, and then the other second step is you take yourself through the points acknowledging the feeling, and then the second step is willing to let them go. So you're not saying like, I'm going to let them go, I have to let them go. You're just willing. You're just willing to let them go. And the willingness in itself in life, if you think that, oh, I don't want to try online dating. I hate online dating, blah, blah, blah. But if you're like, I'm willing to try, totally changes the energy. So you're willing to let them go. Then you acknowledge the feeling, you're willing to let it go, and then you're willing to feel something different. Because again, you're not going to be able to go from like a 10 nervousness to like inner peace, right? So you're just willing. And so that's just some quick things to kind of elevating your mood and getting through the holidays, is to listen to music every day. And so now we'll go back actually to our challenge here that I have for you guys. So you know that you can take action to feel better, that your feelings don't have to run your life. And there's these two things, the tapping and the music, that you can do immediately that will really honestly give you immediate relief. It's pretty amazing. So I would say when your mood goes down, or if you're feeling kind of funky, you commit to doing a tapping video. Do you commit to doing that tapping sequence I just showed you? I'm going to send out the recording too. Do you commit to sticking in your earbuds and listening to some music? Maybe both. And then what would be your next indicated step? And so the thing again about solving a problem, right? About overwhelm, because overwhelm usually happens when you actually do need to take action. And so what's the next step? What's just the one little next thing that you could do? You know, if you have all this stuff to do, all this stuff to do, oh my God, where am I going to start? What's the next thing? What's the one next thing to do? And then let it unfold. And again, the tapping video and the music first, the step, what's the step? The action is the last thing. Because if you try to do the action first when you haven't dealt with your feelings, it can be hard. It can be harder. So that's what I've got for you guys. I'm stopping the